Good morning, everybody. It is Good Friday in England, and I'm very, very happy to be joined by my lovely friend Issrae. So Issrae is a translator of my books into French, but she's also a rather magical being, and I thought that you would all love to meet her. Say hello, Issrae.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I'm even honored and happy, excited, and also stressed because I love you so much. I love your work. I admire you so much that, it's like I'm gonna meet a teacher, all this respect.
So let me share a secret with everybody else. I do think that I am not the teacher in this relationship. You are the teacher, lady, I'm telling you. But so to tell everybody, she first sent me an email saying, I love roses. And I was like, yeah, I love roses. So, and she says, no, I translate lots and lots of books about roses into French. So tell people about your love of roses.
This is fascinating. I was born in a city called the City of Roses in North Africa. And it was known for the roses, for the jasmine, for all this love of the colors, the nice perfumes. When you walk in the streets, you smell it. It's part of the town. Now things have changed because of the urbanization and things like that, but that stayed with me. And I have my parents also working in the nature field, all things related to agronomy and farmers and things like that. So I have this kind of pure love for nature, but I was not attracted to nature from the scientific field, from the perspective of seeing them as objects or things to dissecate, to discover how they function. It didn't speak to me at all. I was really entering, when I smell a rose, I enter into this space of in-between. We were talking about it. And there is something magical that happens, as if like you are merging with them. And you are transported into another space where you can see things differently and feel life differently. So when one day I was sitting contemplating, I do shamanic plant shamanism, which means that in my shamanic practice and healing practice, we connect to plants, we connect to the different spirit beings such as planets and things like that, to learn from them, to incorporate them within us. And on some of the journeys, there are a lot of roses that came, and we have created an oracle deck, with their messages. But there was something more to do. So I started putting the structure for a course, and I suggested it to many people, and they showed up. And when they showed up the first time, there was this spark where we went on a meditation, and we discovered that there was a temple of roses that needed to be remembered in our memory, but remembered, put again, taking form again in our physical life. So we went on the journey to understand the geometry of the roses, their logic, their role on our planet. They are cosmic beings, very, very sacred cosmic beings. And on one day I was sitting meditating with the roses, and Isis showed up, and Thoth, who is I'm very interested in Egyptian mysteries. It's part of my memory, and they showed up and they told me, I don't know, I was looking at covers because I was writing my book, of roses and the Time of Roses. I was looking for the different covers out there to, do something similar, but at the same time personal. And I saw your book. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt something in my heart. And that was like few minutes before. And then I went on my meditation, and they showed up, Isis and Thoth, and they told me I should contact you to translate your book. I was like, oh, I don't know the lady. I have never seen her before, and that's how I wrote that email to you. And it was kind of natural meeting, because that's what the roses do. They are magical. They create like a fabric that we don't see. We were talking about the bees yesterday, their beesing is on the background. You don't see it, but it's there. And they are kind of creating something that is beyond our mind, beyond our usual understanding. There's a
Definitely.
big trust to have in this path.
So it's interesting actually that you come from Africa. I had a lovely visitor this week from a lady who is American actually, but is living and working in Rwanda. And she said she is going all around the world visiting people who have interest in bees for other reasons than just commodifying them. And we had the most lovely time. We made a beautiful risotto together and chatted. As you know, I like food. And we had a great time. And I'm hoping that I can get her on as well. But she had said to me that she is struggling to find bee medicine, old pre-Christian thoughts behind any African traditions. So it'd be interesting if you can keep your eye out for that, or because she would be overwhelmed to hear about it. But as you say, they do like to join people together. And the funny thing is, and I haven't shared this with you before, I do know that when I was looking back through my journals, that I was working with Manada. I'd written the book and I was just feeling a bit lonely and isolated, really. And one of the things that I work with Manada for is to bring people to me who are useful to me and who have similar kinds of viewpoints, and people who will help my journey. So that's a big tip for people. If you feel like you're out on a limb, and lo and behold, the bees bring you to me. And you have been such an amazing teacher, as well as the most beautiful translator. But her covers of her books, I have to tell you, are stunning. I do love the work that you do.
Thank you. I mean, your books are inspiring. They tell me that's actually, it's really funny, because when you start seeing spirits everywhere and you start communicating, now that's one of the things that the bees and the flowers teach us, is to see everything alive. So actually, when I translate your book, it tells me, I want this, and I want that. And
yes. I have to tell you, they do that too, and I don't smile when I say it. People go to me, what's that book going to be about? I don't know. I don't know. I'm like that in the middle with Mer now. I'm like, this is very interesting, but I'm not sure it's ever going to look like a book, but they do in the end.
Yes.
And so I go on, sorry, you didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
Oh, just something that was really interesting. I was telling, when I'm writing a book or translating, and actually another sentence is coming, is that the book is writing us. Your book, when I translate, the book is kind of being translated through me, in the sense of we incarnate what is being worked. There's something worked on in us when we are writing. So we are being kind of remodeling within.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know, that's so weird. I've almost just said that to the silent one as he was standing there. Just bought me a cup of tea. I just said, oh, I'm so sick. I'm so tired working so hard. I said, getting ready for this workshop that I'm doing with Deb. But I'm definitely being worked. Definitely like to remodel what I'm doing, to tidy things up, to mend things that were broken. And it is like as if I've inhabited a new hive, got into a new hive, and I'm like, oh, so let's mend this wax, let's get this all put. And maybe I'll even get to tidy my bedroom, because bees do not like mess. So, but yeah, you're quite right. You do that kind of work and they go, no, you do this wrong, remodel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you felt something about profundity, because, all right, we are doing this video maybe on YouTube or Facebook or any platform, and we are taking space to share our passion. But at the same time, the roses are inviting me a lot to the profound work. So instead of just staying at the surface of some things, I have to dive deep and confront the shadowy aspect of the human existence, of our human existence, to transmute them, but also kind of remembrance of who we are. So I was writing yesterday, I write different books at the same time. That's how they come. And one of the paragraphs that was coming was, I am a cosmic celestial being. Whether you see it or not, this is who I am. And I am more than what you see. This is the same thing for everything. for you, oh my gosh, I mean, people might know you from what you share, but I sense so much profundity in you. And yesterday I was with you in the workshop and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. There is another thing that is uncovered, because when you accept to go in a profound way, profound kind of like dive deep in a topic. And this is what you do. And this is what I do with the roses. There is something very changing, and it changes your existence, and it changes your way of seeing the world, and you discover really who you are. Yeah, I don't know what's coming.
But I agree, and you and I were talking about this in-between space, and you know, to a certain extent, even just this conversation between us is an in-between space. I feel very much like I'm in an in-between space, that after the workshop at the end of May, I will be on the other side. You know, I feel like I am pregnant with this and just like working. I can't wait till the birthday, and not in the same way as I was when I was giving birth. I was like, I don't even know if I'll have the energy to get through it, you know. But that is very much a Melissa space. We say that in the tradition, we say the betwixt and the between. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in-between space, because you said it's been really turning up for you too.
So actually, I realized that many flowers and many, you know, even the birds singing, when you go to the beach and you hear the waves, there are a lot of things that are available to us. And this is the teaching of Hathor. She showed me how it is important to go in this in-between spaces to receive, whether it's knowledge or energies or things like that, because our mind, and that's another message that came yesterday, our mind is limited with its capacity to grasp the information. The human mind as we know it now, it's limited. We cannot open fully. So let's imagine that we have different brains in the heart, in the stomach, in the womb, in the hands. We have so many different brains in our body, but also in our other spaces, other bodies that can get the information, that can do some work that we cannot do with our mind, because there is something really, you know, we know about the control. We are control freak. We control our days. We control everything. We try to control everything, but it's not organic. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's not possible. And that's how many traditions exist since centuries and centuries, to communicate with spirits of nature, to communicate with the ancestors, to know how can we face the unknown? How can we deal with some events that come unexpectedly? Because life is unexpected. We are not supposed to know everything, and we are not supposed to control everything. We are supposed to flow with everything. So that's the capacity that we need to understand and to learn. And when you enter in that in-between, you become kind of waves, you become energy, you become flowing, and you learn more, because that's the real central teaching.
Do you know what I mean, everybody? She is the teacher. And it's really interesting that you talk about that today. I very quickly flicked my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness, the worst thing could happen. Surely I was recording this. But I am, so I can breathe. But of course, Hathor was mistress of Myrrh, and it is the day of the Myrophores today. So yeah, it's beautiful that that's all shared in that time, and that really gave me a great insight into where I should be going with my book. So thank you with that. That was, you know, I feel like that beautiful sharing was probably why I am here today. Yeah.
Oh wow, I can tell you so much more about her. I just sent my proposal next year here in Portugal. We are having the Festival of the Goddess, and if you can come, that would be amazing. It would be
sounds
in
beautiful,
May.
doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's about, I proposed a workshop about Hathor, because I just came back from Paris, and Louvre, the Museum of Louvre, has a very beautiful face of her. And also there are mirrors of Hathor. And I went there and I stood in front of that mirror for many, many minutes that appear to be eternal, because, you know, those mirrors is not just to see our beauty, as people say. They are magical tools. They are divination tools. And when you stand in front of the mirror of Hathor, if you get the chance to see one in some of the museums, you're going to see so many different things. It's a tool to go in between the spaces. The sound, like the sistrum, we use the sistrum with Hathor, and there is this music helps us to go in between. So there are so many tools available to us in our daily life to push us in that space, and to reduce the amount of energy we are asking from our mind, which makes us burned out. There is a mind burned out in our societies.
My brain feels fried most of the time these days. And I do think it has a lot to do with all the work that I'm doing on Facebook. Just get off it and just calm down. But it's, as you say, life insists, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. So it's really, the more we have some mind work to do, the more we will need to go into the in-between space to relax and release the tension, and to kind of put the charge of our controlling mind in the hands of the soul in us. Carry me away, carry me. And sometimes you will get some insights there, you get some direction about where to go. So yeah, this is kind of coming very strongly today, to relax our mind, because we are really just burning ourselves out. And when you do, you cannot think, you cannot decide, you are too angry, you are too frustrated, you do not have any patience with people you love, and it just complicates your life a little bit more.
I'd love to there's so many threads there. I'm not going to be able to pick them all up. You are going to get interrogated off screen later about the mirror, definitely. I want to know more about the mirror. But going back to what we were talking about, the different senses that we were talking about, how we inhabit we might feel things, we might see things, etc. I think also one thing that we are we've had conditioned out of us when we're thinking about this in-between space, and this is something I really learned profoundly in the Melissa work, is that there's so many senses outside of the sight, hearing, taste, touch. So for example, one of the most important that I think for me is proprioception, where I am positioned, which keeps me balanced, and so quite often when you're doing like really deep Melissa work, the in-between space is, right, what emotion, how did that turn up in my body? Well, that kind of doesn't have, in our like 21st century religious sphere, that doesn't have an explanation. So that's really ancient stuff. But I think also for you, and less so for me, but we have this sense of beauty, this sense of aesthetics. What do I see? And in Melissa, we say, what did I behold? So what was the beauty, not just in what I see, but what I felt, and what did I see unfold in front of me? So these in-between spaces are much bigger in the ancient practices than we can perceive them today, I think. And I'm really keen to try and bring those back.
Yes, totally. Two things come to mind. So one of them, I was in, I went on a pilgrimage in Egypt. And one of the places I visited was the Temple of the Oracle in Siwa, where Alexander the Great went to seek a vision. And when I entered, I had a vision. I had a vision of how the temple was before, and how often people used to come to seek visions, to enter in that in-between spaces where there is no limitation anymore. And one of the tools I've seen is water in the temple, water and its importance. The dream world was part of the work of that temple. The mirrors were there, the connection with the moon and with the sun, and all the astrological kind of alignments that are really, really beyond what we know now. But in all of that, what is really interesting is the limitation of the words. Because what you experience and you see, sometimes you cannot translate it in words. And I always say, and maybe people don't like when I say this, but I really feel all our languages are kind of archaic. I find the hieroglyphs one of the more advanced languages, because you have the image, you have the metaphor, you have the sound, that all contained in one symbol. While our letters, and it's really a bit limited. Well, it's limited. So how can we translate? How can we understand some of these experiences and translate them into whether books or a message? How did the priests do to translate the messages? And there you find different dances, you find metaphors, you find drawings. So there is something that needs to come forward in our languages, not as a leisure or a habit, like just to do sometimes, but really to embrace and embody in our daily life. Drawing, we don't do it anymore. We write all the time on the computer. And we forgot yesterday, one of your exercises was to draw. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fun. This is fun because we are calling different other senses, different other spaces in us. So it's really that invitation that is coming today to get back. And I'm speaking for me, that's very an invitation for me first, and then for others.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And one of the I'm going to try and remember to keep on two threads now. So one of the things that was fascinating to me was that obviously the Melisite were the priestesses who presided at the Eleusinian mysteries, and nobody knows what happened there because it was sealed by secret, and it has been for 4,000 years. And I was really like, I mustn't uncover and I mustn't disclose any of these secrets. But it came very clear to me, you can't anyway. It's all so complicated. There's so many threads, there's so many connections that happen. You spend so much time looking at the beehive and seeing the threads. You just need to be talking all the time. And I'm very sure that everybody was talking it all the time, but there was no secret as far as I can see outside of that. It was just that you learn so many things about yourself. You learn so many things about the planet through looking, taking your ego out of it and looking through the bee. And it was all through metaphor. The beauty comes through the metaphor, definitely. But the second thread I was going to say was, I think that aromatherapy, and by that I mean actually breathing and inhaling the scent, has now reached a point where it needs to evolve its language. We are very much in a place where we are held back by scientific terms, but also held back by the fact that we describe through wine or perfume. Well, that's not got a spiritual layer to it, has it? And I do think that that's probably where a lot of expansion needs to start to take place now, that we start to try and put words to those metaphors.
Totally. And also, in ancient times, I remember in Alhambra, in Spain, for example, there were a lot of researchers and very, very evolved people that were studying astronomy, mathematics, medicine. They were studying many things at the same time, which is really amazing because that gives them different languages, human languages. So let's say if we talk about the perfume or an essence, special essence, for me, the rose, I see her or him because the energy, you see the colors, and then you see the geometry, and then you see the mathematics, and then you see the flow, and then you see the values, the cosmic values, and then you see the avatars, because they are kind of avatars. They are kind of multi-layered identities of one plant or one essence. And the fact of being open to all of this will make our understanding of it more profound. And we don't need to use anymore kind of a big perfume of that essence. You just like even talking about it, even bringing that conscious.
Moving into that space.
Exactly. We enter right away into it. and that's what it means to become a rose. I talk about becoming a rose because you understood, you gathered, you grasped, you infused yourself with that really profound understanding of its spirit. And then, you know, it's like you start seeing the word in those eyes. That's why I say sometimes the geometry, you know, in my trip to Egypt, we visited the Osirian temple. It's a very ancient place, maybe more than 10,000 years ago. And we can, I mean, in the past, they could find fruits of lotus, the blue lotus, you know, in that space. And there are sacred waters there, you know, known for healing. So, and that's where we found that flower of life, you know, in the wall. And it was really interesting to see it and to connect with it. But it is an entrance, which means when you connect so profoundly and understand the different layers of a plant, it opens the door to other spaces. And when you say this is the maximum of what I could get, you find that no, you are not yet at the end of the way. You are entering another profound space that you have never understood with your human mind, but kind of you knew, kind of you remember it. So yeah, so the flower of life was like a beginning of another journey in that space where I connected to the cosmic mother. I was so much crying. I was telling her, oh, take me back. I want to go back to, and she was like, no, go back. It's not yet the time.
Yeah.
But it opens you to very high connections. And all that because you said yes. You allowed yourself to enter that in-between space more often.
I really agree with this idea of a remembering. People used to say it and I used to think, I don't remember. But working with Melissa, I remembered, and the most profound level. I didn't have that experience with Rose. I was like transported magically, that it was so beautiful and it was lovely to be in that space, and I was very dreamy. And like you say, you become the medicine. Like when I was sweet basil, goodness me, everybody around me was like, whoa, we'll be glad when you finish this, you know. But it was so fast. I did it in 4 months. But as I went into Melissa, it was like, whoa. And bear in mind, I have an unusual background, that I was brought up in a pagan household. My mum is a very deep thinking witch, and she's gone through many initiations. She's 3rd degree priestess, and people always used to say to me, well, what's it like being a witch? I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. And people, I'm sure my family were like, oh, I wish she'd give this up. But as soon as I encountered the Melissa medicine, I was like, this is what I don't know why I was so blooming funny about not being a witch, but this is what I am. And I do remember it. And I talk in the book about how I had this really awful situation where I was throwing up one day. I frightened myself so much with what I remembered. I was throwing up, and all these lifetimes came coming back in with like the figure of 8, a limniscate. And I was like, but these explain so many things about me. And it was completely a portal back to me. And it was like the plant had been waiting for me to say, all those things that you can't explain, you will be able to if you spend some time with me. And I hadn't had that with other plants at all.
Yes. So it's like a soul plant. It's the soul plant that opens the doorway. But then there are 2 things that come to my mind now. You know, we are multi-layered, like the roses and the Melissa and many plants, we are multi-layered. And sometimes we get confused about who we are because we see so many different memories in us. We see ourselves as, you know, as a man or a woman, as experiencing ourselves as the life of a priest or priestesses, of a witch, of, you know, there are so many memories that are held within us. But one of my clients this week gave me this teaching. She said, oh, I learned that all these beings are powers. So instead of identifying myself to them, I take them as powers. They are the
Skills that I
power.
acquire. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's good, isn't it?
Because we might be lost in the identification of who we are, and that becomes sometimes a prison. So we have to be able also to be in between spaces with the names and the identifications that we have. Because from my journey, I'm still kind of even discovering, even if I say I'm a celestial cosmic being, well, I might be more, I might be different beings at the same time. But in our daily life, we are not there yet. We cannot identify ourselves this way because people will get just freaked out. Oh, you are schizophrenic. No, I am polyphrenic, like Jane Austen says. And so we have to introduce that in small bites, you know, to be able to communicate our messages in a harmonious way, in a constructive way. We don't want people to focus on us being kind of like, you know, some different beings. We want them to focus on the power we are bringing back, on the teaching we are bringing.
Yeah, I think that in some ways the name comes from other people's mouths, doesn't it? You know, that's what they witness. She's really not of this world, or goodness me, she's almost like a bee. You know what I mean? Then there's that shapeshift. You know, that you have walked between the worlds and people have seen it. But as you say, if you label it, people go, "What?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
And letting them discover who we are by seeing that, by seeing what we do, by witnessing us. So it's really important to be out there. We are not doing the work of the priestesses being inside the temple, while some still do. But my role for me is to be out, is to speak, is to go meet people in personal way. Even if I, for many years I closed myself because I was like, "What this is crazy world. How can I survive here?" But our role is to infuse this fabric of reality with the values that we are bringing, and to not be absorbed by what is not us, but to absorb others with what we are. So being out there is important.
I think also, like, given that my people, if you like, my tribe are oil workers, this idea of being able to absorb, to infuse is probably really beautiful imagery for people. So maybe we pick a plant and we infuse people with that plant. Yeah,
exactly. And with the values of the plant, because they bring rays, they bring many things. Yeah.
I think just one thing before we go, because I just wanted to really share this with you. When I was really trying to work out, well, what is a priestess? What's the meaning of a priestess? And that's a video in its own right, I think. Came across this amazing book, and I wish I'd checked the title before I came on, but still, I think it's called The Priestess Path. And it's by a lady who went to India to learn the mudras. And so that she learned to do like the tantric dances. So what goddess has what face? How does she hold her hands? And she taught, so the whole, I think her name's Sharon something, maybe Sharon Rose. And she talks about how each goddess has its own like coquettish face or angry face, like we can think of Kali Ma, we can think again sort of Aphrodite, but the different faces. And I do think that if you can put those faces over the top of an essential oil, that really helps you to embody that of how people see you. How does that plant speak? What does it stand for? What's it meant to entice? What is it meant to convey? What's its message? I think it's fascinating to read her work, because that's very deeply ingrained in Hinduism, and we've lost that.
Yes, that's really beautiful. And this is exactly what I see the next path for the plant world is to bring in geometry, bring in the crystals. Some people do it, bring in the gods and the goddesses' energies, bringing in the planets' energies, bringing in the sounds. and bringing all this in as a whole, as we are whole, bringing it as a whole, and presenting that now as a group of.
Have I already said that to you? Because that's like reading my mind. Have I already said that to you? Have you come up with that yourself? That's reading my mind. That's exactly where I want to take this.
We are going there.
We're going there. That's really lovely, because I was just going to, as soon as we get off, I was going to say, this is my idea. Do you want to be part of this? And clearly you do, because you're there. So everybody, I need to say in the comments, we also want to be there, please.
This is funny. Yeah, you see, it's just being in between and just.
It is. It's cosmic connection all of the time, isn't it? You know, the plants go. These are the people. I was fascinated in lockdown with this idea of, why did I choose to incarnate at this time? You know, all of us, why would we want to go through this? But as we come out of it and seeing how the world has changed, it's so exciting. You know, the spirituality just went boom, and everybody just changed the way they thought, and you know, it's exciting times. I'm glad I chose this.
Yes, and maybe one last message I would say, it came to me yesterday. By our presence, we have changed this world. So let's do the rest of the things just to have fun.
Yes, agreed. I'm very sick of microscopes and molecules now. Let's just go and enjoy being free in the air like volatiles from the planet.
Yes. Beautiful.
Darling, I feel like I've learned so much today, and I'm sure that everybody's going to be sitting going, how do I connect with her?
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
You are wonderful. Thank you so much for today. Stay online. I'm going to press stop record, but don't disappear.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.